Oh, hi, welcome back to my channel. It's been a hot minute, so please, let us sit down together and have a moment. Today I am bringing you a new custom doll collab to which I have been lucky to be invited. Thank you again for asking me, friends. I am way too shy to go towards people for these, so it's always a pleasure to be able to work alongside you all. The theme this time was anime, so all of us chose a different character to portray and recreate in doll form. So you can see here all participants. From left to right we have Beth Ramsden, Stephoodoll, the Hatter's doll, then there's me, Tifanny's Little Things, and Lady Dynamite Creates. The character I chose is the main character from some old anime you might have heard of called Revolutionary Girl Utena. It was one of my first animes and also one of my first manga collection. I still have all the volumes here at home. It's a magical story often cited to be full of sapphic undertones, which I always absolutely loved about it. And just because I cannot help myself, here to give you a quick resume. It's the story of a girl named Utena who is looking for the person who saved her life as a child. Her quest sends her to an elite dueling club in a private academy, where she joins in to win the devotions of a woman named the Rose Bride and obtain the power to revolutionize the world. Utena is known for being kind, popular, and boldly wears a masculine uniform, which becomes a slightly feminine version of a princely look when she enters the dueling area. This is her most iconic look, and this is what we are recreating today. The base doll I chose was a Ghoulia Gen 1 Monster High, mainly because I think that she kind of fits, but it's also one of my absolute favorite sculpt. She is pre-loved and has two right hands, but don't worry about that, we will fix that along the way. As always, the first thing we need to do is to prep the base by first removing her original hair. To remove the stubbles from the inside, I will need to disconnect the vinyl head. And for that I use a cup of boiling water. I leave the vinyl to soften for just a few minutes, and then I use a towel to protect my hands as I give her a nice tug. I always get shocked comments when I show that step on camera, and well, this looks risky, but honestly so far I have not broken a single neck peg. And then I use a tool like pliers or tweezers to scrape the stubs of hair from the inside through the neck hole. Then you can easily remove the chunks of hair and glue. To remove the factory paint on her face, I use pure acetone, which is branded as heavy-duty nail polish remover and sold at my dollar store for a fraction of the price the same bottle is sold on Amazon. So always check your local dollar store, folks. Since Ghoulia is a bit on the grey side, and well, as any good ghoul should, I use some acrylic paint to give her a more lively skin tone. I do that by layering coats of diluted paint. I either mix it myself with water or I load my fluffy brush with water before picking a small amount of paint. This way I avoid building up unwanted texture. Countless of coats later, I have a nice result. I also painted the scalp a color matching the hair that she will soon have. As you can see, I did not have any yarn of the right color, so instead of ordering something new, I decided to try blending those two together. And it looks orange there on camera, but that color is actually more of a coral pink. Showing you here real quick how I blend my yarn. After straightening it, I pull on the fiber like this to mix them little by little. It's also how I fluff my yarn, as I actually do not use a brush to process it. It's just a whole lot of pulling and of course using a flat iron on it. It's just not in the frame at the moment. I usually do faces before the hair, but the humidity was too high for me to use sealant, so I started with the hair. Well, since I am often way too lazy to be bothered making wefts, I started gluing the hair directly on the doll's head, starting with the back. I am using Mod Podge for this, and if you've been following me for a time, you'd know by now that I use Mod Podge for so many things. It's basically a super weapon at this point. I'm leaving layers to dry before I make my way up slowly. And I love Mod Podge for that. It feels like it's a bit more tacky and dries a bit faster than good old regular white glue, but I may be biased. For a nice and clear part, however, I do have to make wefts, and the trick is always the same. I use Mod Podge as always, and I double the thickness of some wefts and then I glue them backward on the top of the head so I can then fold them back once the glue is dry. Sometimes there is a little gap there where you can still see the scalp, so I just add a tiny amount of glue and I smush it closed. If I feel like I am missing a bit of thickness, maybe around the face or maybe on the other end of the part line, I add very small wefts all around, just cutting the corners of the glue line even so I can hide it even better. After all is dry, I go back with my flat iron and a boar bristle brush to smooth, remove tangles and small kinks and so on. I use brushing sparingly even now because some yarns are pretty delicate, like one of those I'm using here, and I don't want to basically disintegrate the whole thing. Alright, now that the air is on and dry, I can mask it away to protect it from the sealant and start working on the face. Like usual, I use a Mr. Super Clear to prime the face first, and then I roughly sketch the eye shape that I want with watercolor pencils, and then I can finally start working on the skin with soft pastels and makeup brushes. The key here is to work on layers to build opacity while adding fine coats of sealant when the pigment stops building to both save your progress and give you a nice surface for the color to stick on. For Utena's face, I got a fresh, natural, no makeup kinda look in mind, so I am building soft contours and shadows with different kinds of pinks, oranges, and beiges, just to blend it all as seamlessly as I can. I focus mainly on warm tones for the base, but right where it will get more pigmented on the cheeks, I will also layer in some cool tones. It is very hard to see or realize now, but I am now sketching the eyebrows, or more aptly put, where I will put them. I am using a small craft flat brush that I've cut the bristles off, well, most of them, for this purpose. Then as I progressed, there was a lot of going back and forth to places where I've already started layering pigment and all of that to again build everything up. Once I am happy with the pastel work, I switch to watercolor pencils to start defining finer details. The pencil is also great because I feel like it gives you more control than a brush would. I just try to take my time to keep the lines fine and delicate. Pencils are also the way to fill in small sections with a solid color. The irises are probably the best example I can give, but I also tend to use that on the lips. Then I switch to paints. Please excuse the chaotic palette hanging on the side. So, I am using tiny nail art brushes to dip in some gouache and watercolor paint mixes to draw the finer details, like the inside of the irises, some catch lights, eyebrow hairs, and even small creases on the lips. This is probably where I spend the most time when it comes to face-ups. And I do that on a fresh layer of sealant, so just to be clear. The fact that I use water-activated paint also is pretty great because I can still go back and adjust and remove paint and pigment after it has dried. So I'm basically at it until I am happy with the overall result. I will often go back with a brown pencil like that to draw a slight shadow under the lash line or to thicken the base of the lashes themselves. Then, using a bigger brush and my fingers, I dab splotches of more diluted paint mixes just to add some texture and freckles to my doll faces. In the case of Utena here, I do it very subtly. I will most often finish by making sure that the whites of the eyes are as bright as I want them to be, and near the end I will also come back and add the final catch lights. And here is the finished face, and I think it's a good argument in favor of Ghoulia's face sculpt. And all I need to do right now is to gloss the lips and she's good to go. As for the face, that is, because I still need to style her hair. For that I will be using an eyebrow razor. I start by separating the sections of hair that will all be cut a different length. Then I will do the actual cutting off camera. It's mainly because I actually don't have any setup to be able to hold the head in place and still be able to angle my camera correctly for filming. So if you have any idea of how I could do that, please let me know in the comments. That's the finished hair, and the bangs are not quite there, but after struggling I decided to settle for this. It looks a bit crunchy, but I can assure you that it's not. The hair separated a bit when I used some water when I was styling and actually drove me nuts, but what can I do, what can I say, I threw in the towel. To start the outfit, I traced the shape of her hips and made some red high-waisted shorts using a stretchy fabric. Anyhow, this is where people with actual experience in constructing garments will start to realize that I am making doll clothes while I don't always know and understand what I am doing. I do things that seems to make sense to me, I wiggle it and I pray to the gay gods that it looks alright. Also, if you needed me to preach Mod Podge even more, here's footage of me using it to freight check some fabric. You're welcome. So in total, I made that coat twice, and I am warning you now, there was a lot of adjustments that I made off camera along the way. I didn't do it to hide the mess, though my ego is thankful about it, but it's mainly because I was extremely exhausted for personal reasons and working on that outfit in small bursts over a couple of days, and it was a bit harder to film because of it. I know I'm aware that the bottom of the coat is actually a kind of a frilled gathered trim in white, but I thought I would make it a bit more like a skirt using a thicker and stiffer material just to give it a bit more structured flared look in the end. So I made the slits on the coat a bit too high, so too much of the pseudo skirt is showing, and if I had to do it, I would probably take that into account, but at this point I was worried about the deadline, to be honest. I also did not have the red ribbon on hand, so I painted some using white, and I actually don't like that too much. I ended up trying to retouch it, but it still looks a bit too stiff and the color a bit too uneven, despite me trying to retouch it, so I guess it is what it is. And yes, I end up swapping those faux pockets for smaller ones because they stick out way too much. Then, as I usually do, I sewed the outfit on the doll permanently, and then I used a red ribbon to hide the stitches that I made. And I did a lot of tiny fit adjustments here and there off camera. To create the shoulder pads, I have no idea if it's the right word in English, well, I used some clear cabochons. Then I started gluing the small details using gemstones for the buttons and a small golden chain, and the pieces on the shoulder things are yarn. I just covered them in diluted Mod Podge to stiffen and protect them. So I had no energy to make shoes from scratch, so instead I decided to modify these, knowing that yes, Utena wears sneakers and not boots. They're flat, that's good enough for me. I glued some ribbon bows on them, and then I sewed some small tubes for her ankles to act as if she had socks poking out of her shoes. Lastly, then, I did not forget that she had two right hands at the beginning, so I went out and I got these from an Ever After Idol. And now that I have everything done, I clipped the neck peg a bit and got her ready to reattach her head on her body once and for all. And now there you have it, folks, my own version of Tenjo Utena. I hope that you like her, because even if some things didn't work for me during the process, since I finished her, she's grown on me so much. I'm actually very happy to have a character that I love so much in my collection now, because as a teenager, I was absolutely obsessed with masculine characters like her, or Sailor Uranus, or Integra Helsing. So looking back, I think I see that there was maybe an egg that started to crack. Now, please folks, now that you're done with this video, please, well, like and subscribe, but more importantly, go on and watch the other videos in this collab. I'll leave everyone's link in the description box below. That's Beth Ramsden, Stephoodoll, The Other Dolls, Tifanny's Tiny Things, and Lady Dynamite Creates. Lovely people, highly deserving of your views. As for me, folks, I'll see you soon. I'm working currently on a lot of things, and I sadly got really sick at the start of winter, but I'm better now and back in force. I still also have another video almost ready to go live, so expect me to show up in your notifications pretty soon. In the meantime, folks, please, keep being you, keep surviving, keep living your truth. Queer folks are worthy, protect trans kids, and most of all, be safe.